The cabin stood alone, shrouded in mist. A darkness hung in the air, heavy, oppressive. John, a writer seeking solace, found it unsettling. Yet he ignored the feeling. He needed this retreat. His mind, a whirlwind of late, craved quiet. But the silence inside was worse. It pressed against him, suffocating. He unpacked, each sound echoing unnaturally. A log shifted in the fireplace. He jumped, heart pounding, just settling in, he told himself. But the darkness felt like a presence watching. John tried to focus on his work. Nightfall came quickly. The shadows in the cabin deepened. John tried to lose himself in his writing, but the silence was broken now, by whispers, faint, indistinct. He strained to hear. They seemed to slither around the edges of his awareness. He shook his head, trying to clear it. Stress, he thought. Must be the stress. But the whispers persisted, growing louder. He could almost make out words. His name, he thought, whispered with a chilling malice. His heart pounded in his chest. He tried to rationalize the sounds. The wind perhaps whistling through cracks in the old cabin. But the wind was still outside. The whispers seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, from the very air he breathed. He couldn't breathe. Panic welled up inside him. He had to get out. He stumbled towards the door. It wouldn't open. It was as if something was holding it shut. He rattled the handle, his fear mounting. He was trapped. John backed away from the door. His eyes darted around the darkened cabin, searching for the source of the whispers, for the thing that held him prisoner. He saw nothing, but the whispers grew louder, angrier. He felt a cold breath on his neck. He whirled around, empty air. He was losing his mind. He had to be. There was nothing in the cabin with him, but the whispers told a different story. They spoke of his deepest fears, his darkest secrets. John sank to the floor, his back against the wall. He felt a presence in the room now, cold, malevolent. It circled him, the whispers a constant torment. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block it out. But the whispers only intensified. They were inside his head now, mocking him, threatening him. He felt something brush against his leg. He kicked out wildly, his foot connected with nothing but air. But the whispers laughed. John opened his eyes. The whispers seemed to have subsided. He was alone. Had it all been a hallucination? He slowly got to his feet. His gaze swept the cabin. And then he saw it, scrawled on the wall in what looked like blood. A message. "You're mine now." The words seemed to burn themselves into his mind. Terror flooded him. This was no hallucination. Something was in the cabin with him. Something evil. John stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The cabin was plunged into darkness. He scrambled for the fallen lamp, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He had to get out. He had to escape. He found the lamp and fumbled with the matches. A cold hand closed around his wrist. He screamed, dropping the lamp. It clattered on the wooden floor. He thrashed against his attacker, but his hands met only empty air. And yet the grip on his wrist tightened. John fell to his knees, his unseen attacker dragging him across the floor. He clawed at the wooden planks, desperate for purchase, but the grip on his wrist was unrelenting. He was being pulled towards the fireplace, towards the cold ashes. The whispers started again, louder than ever. They spoke of sacrifice, of an ancient hunger. He was to be an offering. John kicked and screamed, a primal fear gripping him, but his struggles were useless. He was drawn closer to the fireplace. The cold ashes seemed to beckon him. He felt the heat of the ashes before he saw them. A wave of suffocating heat washed over him. He was being pulled into the fireplace, into the heart of the darkness. He screamed again, his voice hoarse and raw, but his cries were swallowed by the whispers. They were all around him now, a chorus of death. He closed his eyes, accepting his fate. Then everything stopped. The whispers ceased. The grip on his wrist vanished. He lay there, gasping for breath. Silence descended upon the cabin once more, but this time it felt different, heavier, as if something had shifted. John slowly got to his feet. His body ached, every muscle screaming in protest. He stumbled away from the fireplace, his heart still pounding in his chest. He had survived the night, but he knew deep down that he wasn't truly safe. The darkness lingered, watching, waiting. He grabbed his jacket and fled the cabin. He didn't look back, he didn't dare. He knew that if he did, he would see it. The entity that haunted the cabin, The unseen terror. He never returned to the cabin. He never spoke of what happened that night, but the memory lingered. A shadow in the back of his mind, a constant reminder of the unseen terror that lurked in the darkness. He knew that it was still out there, waiting for its next victim, waiting for the chance to feed its ancient hunger, and he knew that he would never be truly free of it. For he had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back, and it had seen him.